got to know.
Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs is a fairy tale by the Brothers Grimm, right?
Yes.
And in it, we have an individual, that's the king, right, who is married and has a kid, and they name her Snow White, right? Yes or no?
I'm not using the Brothers Grimm version. I'm using the Walt Disney cartoon. I just want to make that clear.
So there's different, all right? But it is true, though, that Snow White had a father, right?
Yes, she did.
And the father was the king, right?
Yes.
And it ends up that Snow White's mother ends up dying, right?
Yes.
And what ends up happening is that he remarries, right?
Yes.
And what ends up happening when he remarries is that he has somebody who is less than honorable, if you will, or savory with regard to her view of Snow White, correct?
Yes.
And so what happens during that situation is that there is a problem because this woman, the queen, begins to, if you will, abuse or be less than nice to Snow White, right?
Yes.
So what we have then is a situation where we have a father who has failed to protect, right? If we're looking at it from this global perspective, right?
Yes.
And so then, if we look at it that way, Snow White is sort of being, and I use the term loosely, abused. Not in the technical sense, but she's not being treated correctly, right?
She's being abused as a child, right?
That's correct. And one of the things that happens after that is that the father sends her away, correct? She goes into the forest, right?
Objection for relevance, going this far into the Snow White story?
Overruled.
Right?
She goes into the woods, correct.
And in fact, when she's out in the woods, there's neglect by the father, right?
Yes.
So, for example, in this particular case, one of the things that you used in your evaluation was that the defendant, according to you, suffered some abuse as a kid, right?
Yes.
According to you, the wicked stepmother in her circumstance is her mother, right?
I didn't say that.
No, I'm the one that's asking the question. Isn't that true?
I don't equate her mother with a wicked stepmother.
Well, her mother, according to what you found out, hit her with a spoon, right?
Right.
And according to what we know is she allowed her father to hit her also, right?
Yes, she did.
And her father hit her, and at one point, you know, some of this. What do you know about what her father did to her in terms of any abuse that there may be here?
There was one incident where he pushed her and she hit a piece of furniture and lost consciousness.
And the mother was present, right?
I'm not certain if the mother was present. Mr.
Wouldn't that
Martinez.
be important to know?
Not necessarily, because there were other incidents.
Pardon?
There were other incidents. I'm not evaluating whether or not Miss Arias is a battered child, Mr. Martinez. I was looking at the issues of domestic violence.
Well, ma'am, you're talking about abuse, aren't you?
I'm
Right?
talking about domestic violence between two adult intimates.
And one of the things that you just told me that you did was that you looked at the background of the defendant. Didn't you just tell me that?
I did.
And you know about this abuse at the hands of her mother, right?
Yes.
And one of the things that happens, and we've talked about Snow White being sent out in the forest, one of the things that happens to the defendant, you're aware, is that according to what you know, isn't it true that before she was the age of majority, she was, if you will, also sent out into the woods to go live with somebody else, right?
She was not sent out. She chose to leave.
So she left. In other words, she chose to leave. Why? Why do you believe that she chose to leave?
Objection, relevant speculation. It's fairy tale.
Overruled.
Go ahead. Why did she choose to leave?
She chose to leave because she felt abused and because she felt controlled.
By her parents, right?
Yes.
And she moved in with somebody by the name of what? What was his name?
Bobby Waters.
And she lived in what can be best described as less than ideal circumstances, right?
Correct.
And the same thing with Snow White, right? She lived in a situation with less than ideal circumstances, right?
She lived with the 7 dwarfs, and according to the Disney version, she was pretty happy.
Well, she lived in a shack, right?
I thought it was a cute little cottage, Mr. Martinez.
All right. But there's 7 dwarfs that she's living with, right? No one of her own age is there, right?
I don't know the age of the dwarfs.
Well,
I don't. I'm sorry, but I don't.
What I'm saying to you is it your opinion that there were other little kids that would play in the playground with her when she was living with the 7 dwarfs?
Objection, relevance. Argumentative.
Overruled. You may continue.
Would you repeat the question, please?
Is it your understanding that there were other little kids to play with Snow White out near the shack?
Near the cottage? No.
In fact, she was just there cooking and cleaning, right?
Well, she was talking to the birds and singing with the animals.
And cooking and cleaning for the dwarfs, right?
Correct.
Isn't that sort of what you know about the defendant and Bobby Juarez, right?
I don't know that Jody Arias was cooking and cleaning for Bobby Juarez.
Do you know if he was working?
He was not working.
Do you know who was providing the money to buy the food?
They were living with his family.
Right, but do you know whether or not the defendant was working?
She was working.
Do you know whether or not she indicated on the stand that she was the one that bought all the food?
I've not been privy to what she said on the stand, Mr. Martinez.
Did you discuss it with her?
That she bought food and brought food into the house? Yes, she did.
And then with regard to Snow White, one of the things that we know is that something bad happens to her, right? The incident with the apple, right?
Yes.
Somebody comes and harms her, right?
Yes.
And we can take it different ways, but do you know any incident involving her and Bobby Juarez?
Yes.
What is the incident that you know about?
I know about a time that he choked her. I know that he, according to Mr. McCartney, verbally abused her.
So with regard to the choking, that's a violent act, correct?
Correct.
Just like this issue involving the apple is a violent act, right?
Correct.
And with regard to Snow White, we know that she ends up going unconscious, as we would talk about it in this day and age, right?
Correct.
And basically what's going on with her is that she's waiting around, right? For Prince Charming, right? Or somebody, right?
She's waiting around?
Well, she's not going anywhere, right?
When she's unconscious?
Right.
Well, when she's unconscious, she's lying around unconscious.
Right. And then we have the kiss, or whatever happens, and Snow White awakens, right?
Correct.
And she starts to live with Prince Charming, right?
Yes.
And if we start talking about this issue involving the balance of power, in that particular situation, Snow White has no power, right?
Objection, relevance.
Overruled.
Right?
Well, she's a queen. I'm not sure what kind of power she has.
The king has the power, doesn't he?
Objection, foundation. Relevance, foundation, speculation.
Overruled.
Right?
Well, the king, yes, has more power.
Right. And so if, for example, Snow White, in this relationship, if we're talking about the balance of power, in that case, she doesn't have much power, right?
Objection, speculation, judgment, may approach.
You may approach.
You got to know.